would you say to Canadians who find it deeply troubling and offensive that companies like McKinsey, like Purdue Pharma, are still cashing in big time as a result of government contracts instead of being held accountable for the damage that they caused?
Again, in being responsible for procurement, I wouldn't really be able to speak to the policy and the outcomes on with respect to the opioid crisis. What I can assure Canadians are, with our new Office of Supplier Integrity and Compliance, we are analyzing companies. We're looking for instances where companies have maybe defrauded governments, where they have been involved in corruption and collusion, and we're making sure that we're not doing business with those entities. With respect to the NMSO and the work that was done, I would note that that work has been done by McKinsey and Company Canada and has been very focused on benchmarking, transformation, IT, procurement, not on health advice.
Look, this is a question about procurement, right? It's not a question about health policy. It's a question about procurement. When procurement decisions are being made and you have tens of thousands of Canadians that have died as a result of the opioid crisis, those procurement decisions, the companies that benefit from those procurement decisions, obviously a message is sent to Canadians, to their families, to their communities who have suffered, when companies that, in this case, McKinsey, that was part of the process of offering advice to Purdue Pharma, is able to benefit from these contracts. So do you consider the public interest? Do you consider the impact on those families from giving such a large volume of contracts to a company that was instrumental to their suffering? Is that part of your calculation, or is it not something that you do, or you're supposed to, or you're able to take into consideration?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. When we're looking at procurement, again, some of the factors we take into: is a company legally able to operate within the country? We'll look at, have they been convicted, or are they charged with fraud, corruption, collusion in Canada, in any provinces or territories, and other.
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump in because I'm running out of time. The irony of this, though, is that this government has for so long been reluctant to hold these big corporations accountable for what happened in the opioid crisis. So your criteria for considering them eligible for procurement, whether or not they've been held accountable for these actions, isn't triggered precisely because this government has failed to take actions to hold these companies accountable. You have a close relationship between Dominic Barton and McKinsey and the government, a failure to hold them accountable, and then that lack of accountability being invoked as a justification for continuing to use them to procure services. Meanwhile, so many Canadians have suffered as a result of the opioid crisis. McKinsey and Purdue have had to pay massive compensation in the United States. McKinsey alone, I think, $500 million in the United States. They're not being held accountable because of the cozy relationship we see between these big corporations and the government.